Alright, this is video 2, and we're going to start talking about fresh water and where it's located around the earth and the different places and what terms we use to describe those places. And we're going to focus on surface water today, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And we're going to start by two terms called watershed and river basin, and they're very similar. Both of them are describing land. And when water runs off the land, where does it drain into? Does it drain into a river? Does it drain into a stream or creek? Does it drain into a lake? When we use the term river basin, we're talking about a large area that drains into a major river. When we're talking about a watershed, we're talking about a smaller amount of land that drains into a smaller river or stream. So in Wake County, where we live, we have the Neuse River, which is the major river. It travels all the way from Durham down to the Atlantic Ocean, dumps into the Pamlico Sound down near New Bern. And so we're in the Neuse River Basin. However, within the Neuse, just in Wake County alone, we have many smaller tributaries. Many of you have heard of Walnut Creek or Crabtree Creek or Swift Creek or Continia Creek. These are all smaller bodies, and so there are smaller watersheds within the larger river basin. So river basin describes because those small creeks are going to eventually run into that larger river as well. So here's just a picture to remind us again of most of our fresh water. There's not that much fresh water on the earth. Most of it is frozen. Then a lot is underground, and so all of our rivers, lakes, and streams, all of that fresh surface water is around 1% of all the water on the earth, or even less. All right, so if you think of a river basin, if you notice this first picture, you see that funnel up top. So land, usually your channels where your rivers and streams run, are lower. They're below the level of the land, and so every time it rains, water is going to run toward that low-lying land or those channels. So a river basin is a portion of land drained by the river and all of its tributaries, so Swift Creek, Crabtree Creek, Walnut Creek, drain into the Neuse River Basin. And it's all moving downhill. Sometimes the slope is steep, which means the water is going to be moving more rapidly. Sometimes it is not very steep. It's a gentle slope, and it's going to be moving very slowly. And in a river basin, these smaller tributaries are going to run into the larger river, and then that larger river is going to end up into usually an ocean or some type of saltwater body. For example, the Mississippi River moves down into the Gulf of Mexico, which is salt water, but it's not open ocean, so it's diluted salt water. Now, there are many smaller watersheds within every larger river basin. I gave you the example about the Neuse. The Cape Fear River is made up of the Deep River and many other smaller creeks like Cross Creek. And smaller rivers and creeks are sometimes called the tributaries. They contribute to that larger river. And the water in a watershed is always running to the lowest point. Now, a river is just a channel in which water is constantly flowing, and the speed is again based on the slope. A stream.
Destiny Ivy, if you're in the building, please go to carpool. Destiny Ivy, if you're in the building, please go to carpool.
A stream is just a much smaller channel. And again, the slope can be gentle, the slope can be steep, and it's going to always dump into a larger river. And then bodies of water that are contained, water collects into a basin, are called lakes. And most lakes are fed have either a river or a creek running in or out of them. Some lakes are fed by underground springs, which bring up groundwater to keep the lake recharged. Now, a term we use when we're talking about the Earth as the hydrosphere is the term your ecological address. And so we have a street address. We live in the United States, so that's part of our address. We have a zip code that describes our physical address. We also have our ecological address, and the ecological address is the river basin that you live in. So we are part of the Neuse River Basin, and this is Swift Creek. This was taken outside of Garner on I-40 between Clayton and Garner. So you may have seen these signs and not known what they meant. And that's telling you that Swift Creek is the watershed and it drains into the larger Neuse River Basin. This map shows you the two river basins that you find Wake County in. The majority of Wake County is in the Neuse River Basin. However, if you live in Fuquay or in Cary, your drinking water actually comes out of the Cape Fear. The Jordan Lake is where Cary's drinking water comes from. And so they are actually drawing it out of the Cape Fear Basin and bringing it over into Wake County. But yet when it's cleaned, it dumps back in the Neuse. So that is an ecology question to consider. Is that really the best way to manage water? And then when we also talk about Fuquay, just the way the slope of the land is, Apex is the highest point of land in Wake County, and Fuquay is south of that, and so it's on the other side of the slope. So when it rains in Fuquay, its water collects over in the Cape Fear River Basin. And these are the two largest contained basins in our state. The Cape Fear dumps out down here in Wilmington, and the Neuse again dumps into the Pamlico Sound right here at New Bern. This map includes the fall line, and the fall line.
Owen Petrie and Brett Nixon, please come to the office. Owen Petrie and Brett Nixon, please come to the office.
And so rivers that are here in the eastern part of the state, these rivers all end up in the Atlantic Ocean. The rivers in the Piedmont that are on higher elevation and have a little bit different slope because they're on the other side of this fall line, they end up, most of them flow into South Carolina or Georgia and then eventually flow down into the Atlantic Ocean. They merge into rivers in South Carolina, which end up in the Atlantic. And then if you are in the mountainous part of our state, these rivers are going to flow west or southwest, and they're going to actually end up flowing into other rivers that end up eventually into the Gulf of Mexico. So they're going to flow into a larger river that dumps into the Gulf of Mexico. So they're going to go this way. So our state is unique in that we have 17 river basins, and some drain into the bodies of water off our coast, our sound system and ocean. Some go into other states and then end up in the Atlantic, and then some go into other states and end up in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's very unique about our state. And that's where we're going to stop today, and we will then do some activities on river basins and watersheds over the next several days.